Yo, what I have for you now is a simple technique about using envelope followed noise to add kind of tails to sound. So I've got the snare here. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna take the snare and we're gonna use a test tone, which is just a noise generator. So you can do this with pretty much everything. We are gonna use an envelope follower here. In this case, an audio sidechain, and we're gonna use this to modulate the gain of the test tone. So it's gonna kind of create this noise that follows the envelope of this. We can use rise and fall to kind of change attack and release. Let's maybe limit this because it's getting loud, it seems. So let's maybe change this to white noise and then turn up the fall. So you can hear we get this kind of noise chain, and I'd ideally do this in a parallel chain, so put this in an FX layer. Put just a dry chain here, so we've got our original sound and we can mix in this kind of noise tail. And change the envelope here a bit maybe. We can do some stuff to this tail to make it sound a bit better, like for example we can filter it, of course, especially with white noise. We probably want to take out some highs. We may want to add some grit and some graininess to it using some techniques I mentioned in earlier parts of the series, like we could use a tremolo on this. That's really fast. That would be one way of doing it, to kind of get that graininess. And we could, for example, combine that with a pitch shifter, because these also have that grainy sound, so just pitch it up maybe and quite a large grain size. And then also maybe add a bit of reverb to it, to kind of give it some stereo and spatialize it a bit. And then we want to change the envelope a little. And we can also do this in multiband. So the way we would do this is using a vocoder. Because vocoder, as I talk about all the time, are just multiband envelope followers. So we can just put our test tone in here, and it's gonna envelope follow this vocoder to the snare in multiband. And we probably want quite wide bands. Ideally, we want less bands in this. So Ableton's vocoder lets you do 4 bands when vocoding with noise and stuff. That sounds better on this. Bitwig's vocoder has a minimum of 8 bands, which I think is a bit much. But we can kind of maximize the range here to kind of spread out these bands. Maybe just gate it a bit, add some release. Want, yeah, relatively wide bands here. And of course we can still filter this and stuff. And we probably then want to compress or like transient shape or something these two together just to glue them a bit. So what I would probably do is like take a kilohertz transient shaper here. EQ them together. Maybe take the sustain down. No, actually add a different one at a lower speed, because like the speed really changes how this sounds. So like use lower speed and then turn the sustain down. Something like this, and then maybe we could also compress these or something, I don't know. All sorts of stuff as you would normally process your snares. something like this to kind of add that noisy layer to our sound, and maybe we would want to EQ this even more. I don't know, this is like territory where it really depends on the rest of your mix, obviously. Like, this can be a great way to make a snare sit better in a mix, or worse in a mix, depending on what your mix is. So yeah, using kind of envelope followed noise to layer in with sound. Snares is the classic, but you can do this with all sorts of stuff. I even do this with basses or something.